Well, good morning, Hope Church. How are we doing this morning? We're doing well? We're doing good? Man, we are so glad that you are here. As Alex said, we are in week 5 of our teaching series called Miracles, and it has been nothing short of a miracle of just seeing what God's been doing in the hearts and lives of so many of our people. In the last 4 weeks, we've had 17 people indicate they put their faith and trust in Jesus. How amazing is that? And we never get past the miracle of life change. We never get over the fact that God could change our hearts and lives. Many of us have experienced that, and we never get past that. In fact, next weekend, we are going to be celebrating the miracle of life change through baptism, and we love that. And so right now, I don't even know where we're at. We're like between 13, 14, 15 people next Sunday that are going to be getting baptized, telling the world about the miracle of life change that God has done in their life, and we love that. If you've never been part of a baptism service at Hope Church, I'm telling you to get here, man. It's a huge party, a huge celebration, a huge pep rally as we celebrate what God is doing in the hearts and lives of people. And so, man, I think this series has just struck a chord for so many people because we have been talking about just the power of life change, the power of miracles that only God can provide. And I believe there are so many people that are here, people that are tuning in every week, that are in need of something in life. Let's be honest, in this season right now, we know a lot of people that have gone through a lot, are going through a lot, are carrying a lot. I think as the seasons approach, the holiday seasons, a lot of things in life that we've gone through really start to come to the surface. And there are a lot of people that are struggling, a lot of people that are hurting, a lot of people are going through some things that are in need of something in their life, some sort of breakthrough, some sort of healing, some sort of hope for their life. What I really want to get into today as we kind of begin to think about this, just what God wants to provide for us and the healing He wants to offer us, is I really want to talk about how we can begin to see God and how we can even lose sight of God in the midst of our circumstances, in the midst of our situation. How many of us have been through a season of our life, good or bad, when we found our circumstance or our situation has caused us to maybe being blind to the presence of God? You ever been in a situation like that? Maybe going through a really bad situation or even a really good situation? And through those circumstances or situation, it makes it really difficult to see God for who He is. It's oftentimes we focus on the bad times, right? When we're going through a bad season of valley, when we would kind of say it's difficult to see God right now. I was talking with a family here in our church a few weeks ago who's been going through a really difficult season over the last really few years, and I was telling them about a season my family went through. Back in 1992 through 1994, we lost 7 family members, right? We went through a season where it was just one family member after another family member. It started that year with my dad's sister, my aunt, being hit by a drunk driver in a horrible automobile accident. She was life-flighted to UVA. They lost her several times. She was in the hospital for months and months, and that just began a domino effect. She didn't die, but it began a domino effect in our family's life. My dad went from almost losing his sister to a few months later losing his brother in a tragic accident. 8 months to the day, he lost his father. So we lost my uncle, my grandfather. We almost lost my aunt. We began to lose some cousins. It was all these tragic situations. And my dad had just begun ministry. In fact, it was his first year being a pastor at our church. And I remember just talking with him. I was in middle school. And he would say these questions like, what is God doing right now? Where is God in all of this? Right? It doesn't have to be lost, but you've been there before, right? You've been in a situation where it could be a job loss or a financial situation or a difficult marriage or a health scare. You fill in the blank and you find yourself in the situation where you're saying, I just can't see God right now. You become blind to your circumstance, blind to your situation. Where is God right now in this moment? See, sometimes Jesus shows up in our troubles and reveals Himself to us in ways that He could have never showed up and proved Himself to us if we hadn't walked through that difficulty and that trial and that season. That's what we want to discover today. It's sometimes when you find yourself at a point where you're completely hopeless, when you're in need, when you're desperate, those are the moments that Jesus can show up and be something to you that you need the most, that if you weren't in that situation, He couldn't show you what He's capable of. If you have your Bibles with you today, I want you to go ahead and get to Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, we're going to be in verses 46 through 52 today. And so again, if you have your Bible, go ahead and get there. I want to remind you, if you don't own a Bible, it's always our gift to you. We would love to put a free Bible in your hand. If you're at home or in house and you don't want to follow along your Bible app or a Bible, we'll put it all on the screen for you today. We'll begin in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. It says, and they came to Jericho, as Jesus and His disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, that is the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately, he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Now, let's just stop right there. Bartimaeus, we're going to call him Bart today, is having a hard time, right? He's had a hard life, hard situation. He's a blind guy. He's poor. He's a beggar, right? How many of us would just put our hands up and say, Bart's had a pretty hard life, been dealt a pretty bad hand, right? Come on, how many of us? That's a pretty bad situation, right? We look at our lives, look at our situation, I'd say as bad as it is for you, at least you're not a blind, poor beggar named Bart, right? I mean, as bad as it is. Turn to your neighbor today and say, "At least you're not Bart." Turn to your neighbor right now and say, "At least you're not Bart." At least you're not Bart. No matter how bad it is, right? There's always somebody worse than you. It's all relative, though. We talked about relative problems, right? We've talked about relative problems. Doesn't matter what Bart's got, because all you know is what's in front of you right now, right? Doesn't matter how bad it is for somebody else, or a neighbor, or a coworker, or a family member. All you know is what's right in front of you. But today what we're going to do is we're going to learn in this difficult season. We're going to learn in this portion of Scripture some very valuable lessons from Bart on how to see Jesus in a difficult season. So if you have your notes with you, I want you to go ahead and pull out your program. Grab it on the back of your program is a notes section. You can follow along. There's a pen there for you. If you're at home, again, I'll also be on the screens for you. But I want you to write down 5 lessons from blind beggar Bart. 5 lessons from blind beggar Bart. 5 lessons from blind beggar Bart that we can take away from him today. So much inspiration, so much challenge from this man. The first thing is this, is that you can call out to Jesus anytime. First thing we're going to discover is that you can call out to Jesus anytime. Anywhere, you can call out to Jesus no matter where you are. You can call to Jesus anytime. Verse 46, it says, "And they came to Jericho, as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city." There's a large crowd of people. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, this makes a really big deal if you're a blind guy, right? I mean, think about this. If you're a blind guy on the side of the road and a large crowd of people that's following Jesus, it would make it really difficult for you as a blind man to get through the crowd to get to Jesus. Large crowd of people, large crowd of people. What I love about Jesus is every time Jesus is going from town to town, we discover there were large crowds of people that were following Jesus. People wanted to be in the presence of Jesus. It's one of the reasons why I'm always taken back when people say, "I don't like big churches where there's crowds of people worshiping Jesus." And I say, well, that's odd because you're going to hate heaven one day. And we shouldn't be caught off guard that if Jesus is in our midst, that crowds of people want to be in the presence of Jesus. We're not here to build a big church. We're not here to make a name for ourselves, but we shouldn't be caught off guard. We shouldn't say, well, I want to be at a small church where nobody is happy about being in the presence of God. We say, man, I want to be at a place where it's thriving, where people want to be in the presence of the one who possesses the hope and the miracles that we desperately need. How big is the crowd? I don't know. Just a few chapters ago, we discovered that Jesus was out teaching and 5,000 men showed up. That included women and children. So for roughly 15, 20,000 people. I don't know if that same crowd's there. But regardless, this is a difficult moment. You're a blind guy. You're trying to sift through the crowd to get to Jesus. That seems like an impossible task. Let's be honest. There's another thing at play. Bart is a beggar. This would be the most opportune moment of his life for him to make a living, right? Not every day a crowd this size comes to town. How do you make a living? You sit on the corner and you beg when crowds of people come by, right? I mean, this would be much like how many of you ever been to Times Square before? Anybody ever been to Times Square? You ever been to Times Square on Black Friday? We used to go every year. We would be there for a mission trip, and we would always go to Black Friday. It's insane, right? And so this would have been like Times Square Black Friday. All of a sudden, this mass of people coming into your city. You got blind beggar Bart over there hanging out with the naked cowboy on the corner, right? And you're just out there making some money, right? You're just trying to make a living. You're just trying to get by. This creates a dilemma. What am I going to do? What am I going to do for myself? And so Bart's got a decision to make. Do I want to get to Jesus? What am I willing to do? Doesn't seem like a good time to try to get his attention. Too much going on, too much chaos, too much noise, too many people to get through the crowd. What we can learn, though, from Bart in this moment is that when you're going through a difficult season, there's no wrong time to call out to Jesus for help. There's no wrong time for you to call out to him. Conditions weren't right. It didn't make sense at this time. Maybe you're here today, maybe you're watching this, and you're struggling right now. struggling with when to call out to Jesus. Maybe you have a friend or a family member or a coworker, and you're just wondering, when's the right time? When's the perfect condition? When's the right time for me to call out to Jesus in the midst of my situation? We've often heard it said before. We even have bumper stickers that say, when all else fails, pray. That's the dumbest statement ever made, ever. That's the dumbest bumper sticker, the dumbest thing. When all else fails, meaning this, when I've exhausted all of my resources, when I've tried everything else I can do by myself, when I've done all that I can do to fix the problem, then I guess what I'll do is I'll pray finally. After all hell breaks loose, then I guess I'll bring it to God. I would reverse that and say before all else fails, we should pray. It shouldn't be our last resort. It should be our first resort. We should cry out to God before it even gets any worse. Before we find ourselves in a more desperate season, I'm going to call out to God no matter what. We often think, I don't want to call out to God because here's the deal. I can just get through this. We'll get through this. We've made it through worse than this before. Man, we'll get through this season. We'll get through this circumstance. Let me clean some stuff up. Man, I got some sin in my life. I got some stuff that I'm struggling with. God doesn't want to hear from me right now. I don't want to call out to him right now. This stuff's going on right now. And so we start to kind of play this game with ourselves. Let me just have this season. Let me just buy some time. And then I'll get to a place where I'll begin to call out to God. What we discover about Bart is, listen, there's no perfect time to call out to Jesus. You know what I know? Any time that you're willing to call out to Jesus is the perfect time. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing, no matter how grim it is, no matter how dark it might seem, anytime you call out to Jesus is the perfect time. You don't have to wait for conditions to be right. You just cry out to Jesus. We always see, I love this, we always see that anytime people cried out to Jesus, you know what we discovered? Jesus showed up. Anytime people cried out to him, no matter where they were, no matter where you are, no matter what you're dealing with today, no matter if you're sitting here today right smack in the middle of your sin, right smack in the middle of addiction, right smack in the middle of brokenness that maybe even you caused. You cry out to Jesus right where you are, and he doesn't stay away from you like, I can't get involved in that. He will show up right in the midst of your mess and meet you right where you are. 5 lessons from Blind Beggar Bart. Number 2 is this. Focus on what you have. Focus on what you have. Many times we get so caught up in what we don't have that we become blind to what we do have. I wonder how many of us today are just simply blind to what we do have in life because we're so focused on all that we don't have in this life. Heard it said years ago, the quickest way to forget what you do have is to focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you don't have. We all find ourselves guilty of this. Bart could have been caught up in the fact that he didn't have sight. He didn't have vision, right? He could have been caught up in all that he didn't have, but Bart chooses to focus on what he does have. Look what happens here in verse 47. It says, when he heard, everybody point to their ears, when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to what? Shout. He began to shout, point to your mouth, right? Point to your ear and to your mouth right here. Some of y'all can't do that and chew gum at the same time, but do that right now, right? Point to your ear and to your mouth. He says, you know what? I don't have sight. And I could sit here all day long talking about, I can't see Jesus. I can't see Jesus. I'll never get to him because I can't see him. But Bart doesn't focus on what he doesn't have. He says, you know what I do have? I got 2 fully functioning ears. And I got a fully functioning mouth. And I can hear the presence of Jesus. I know that he's in my midst. And I'm going to use what I do have to my advantage. And I'm going to cry out to him so that I can hear him. I'm a blind guy, and I can't get to Jesus. I need Jesus to get to me. So he used what he had to get a hold of Jesus. See, when you're going through a difficult circumstance, when you're going through a difficult season, it's so easy to get focused on what you don't have that you miss out on using what you do have to experience Jesus right in the middle of your difficulty. See, sometimes it's in our most difficult moments that we begin to realize that Jesus has already given us everything we will ever need to get through whatever we're facing in life. You think this was the first time in Bart's life that maybe something went off and he thought, my whole life I've been focused on the fact that I can't see. But you know what? I realize in this moment, I've been given something that I can use to get through this moment, to provide the miracle that I need to get to the one who possesses the miracle that I need the most in my life. I have everything that I need to see the miracle take place in my life. See, if Bart would have focused on what he didn't have, then he never would have focused on what he did have. And if he didn't focus on what he did have, then he would have missed out on who he could have. Understand this, right? I want you to write this down. This is so big. Don't miss out on who you have because of what you don't have. Don't miss out on the who you have because of what you don't have. Isn't it true? We will lose sight in a moment, in a circumstance, in a difficulty, in a situation because of all that we don't have. And I'll say the quickest way to forget what you have or who you have is to focus on what you don't have, what you don't have in your life, what you don't have in your circumstance, what you don't have in your situation. See, we will never see Jesus for who he is, our provider, our sustainer, the one who wants to show up in our midst and provide the miracle that we need when we're always focused on what we don't have. Listen, we've said this every week of this series, and I'm going to come back to this over and over again. You can write it down. Our faith isn't in what God does. Our faith is based on who God is. See, when you put your faith in the what, then you'll always focus on what? What I don't have, what I need. The what? If God will just meet the what, and see, when we get focused on the what, then we lose sight of God. See, our faith isn't in the what. God, I don't have to have the what, because I have the who. I have the one that is greater, the one that is more powerful. I have you, the I am, the Almighty, the sustainer and creator of life. I have your presence with me. The who is always greater than the what of your life. 5 lessons from blind beggar Bart. Number 3 is this. Don't listen to haters. Don't listen to haters. Everybody's got haters. You got haters, I got haters, we all got haters. You know what I love about our culture? I don't love this about our culture. You know what I know about our culture? Is that we all love to see people fall. We love to see people fall. We love to turn on the news and watch people who think they have it all together fall apart, right? We've all done it, right? We've seen someone we've looked at. We've seen someone who thinks they have the perfect marriage or the perfect home, the perfect life, and then they fall, and we love to talk about it. But we do it in a praying way, right? I'm just praying for them. You know, that's how we do it in church, right? But inside, secretly, we're like, yeah, see, I'm better than them. We love it, right? We all have people we hate on. We all have people who hate on us, people that want to see us fail, not succeed. Even poor little blind Bart, he's got him some haters as well. Verse 48, it says, many rebuked him and told him, be quiet. Hey, Bart, shut up. Nobody wants to hear from you. You little insignificant blind beggar. Nobody cares about you. Jesus don't got time for somebody like you. Just sit over there. Do your begging thing. Jesus don't have time. Hey, he's with us. We're part of the crowd. We're in the group. He doesn't have time for somebody like you. He doesn't care about someone like you. Bart's like, shoot, shut up. He says, what? He said, he shouted all the more. You're not going to shut me up. You're not going to keep me quiet. Son of David, have mercy on me. Now, if you know anything about me, I got just a little bit of rebel in me. I don't know about you. I just a little bit of rebel in me. Maybe you do as well. Maybe you've ever been there. Like if the current is all going one direction, I'm going to find a way to try to go against the current at some point, right? If everybody's saying the same thing, I'm going to find a way to say something different. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how it is. And I feel like Bart's got a little bit of that in him as well, right? Everybody's looking at him. Bart, just no one cares. No one's listening to you right now. No one cares about what you're going through. Bart, just sit there. He's like, heck no. No. The one that possesses the miracle that I need. I'm in need today. And the one who possesses the ability to rescue me, to save me, to restore me, to bring me back to health, whatever it is that I need in life, he's here. And I'm not going to let anybody shut me up. You know what I believe? I believe there's somebody here today who's in need of a miracle. I believe there's somebody who's tuned in this week and you are in need of a miracle and you got naysayers in your life. You got people who looked at you and said, God can't fix that. Why are you wasting your time going to a place like that? God can't fix your situation. God can't fix your sin. Maybe you've even allowed the greatest naysayer of all, your spiritual enemy, to get in your ear and tell you God can't use you. Look at what you've done. Look at where you've been. Look at your sin. Look at your addiction. Look at your divorce. Look at your affair. Look at your brokenness. Look at all these things you've gone through. Look at all the baggage that you have. God can't use you. God can't use you. You just sit there and you shut up. I don't even know why you come to a place like this. I don't even know why you waste your time, why you get out of bed, because God can't work in your life. God can't do something in you. God can't, right? You spend such a great deal of your life focused on people telling you that you can't. Maybe even yourself is the greatest voice that you have in your life. Maybe you've become the greatest naysayer of all in your own life, believing in yourself that God can't use someone like me. What I pray you will discover today is there is a God today who cares about you, who cares about every need that you have, who cares about everything that you're going through, who cares about your situation, who cares about your circumstance, who cares about your hurt and your pain and your loss. And you can spend your whole life listening to people tell you that God can't. I'm here to tell you that he can, that he is willing, and he is able to meet you at your greatest point of need, because here's what I believe to be true. Bart could have sat there, listened to the naysayers, and I believe this. If he would have missed this opportunity, he would have went to the grave in his disorder and his disability. And many of you today, if you continue to listen to the naysayers inside of your head of believing that God can't and God won't, then you will take to the grave. You will take to the grave the healing and the freedom and the restoration that God could have given you on this side of the grave. You got to believe, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to overcome the crowds, overcome the people in your life that are speaking against it, that are pulling you in the opposite direction, to be able to see God for who he really is. Don't let someone ever sway you of what Jesus is capable of doing in your life and in your situation. 5 lessons from blind beggar Bart. Number 4 is this, is that Jesus hears the cries of desperate people. You call out to him, but Jesus hears the cries. He has a special ear for those that are desperate for him. Verse 49, it says, Jesus stopped in his tracks and said, call him. So they called to the blind man. I love this. Jesus is walking from town to town. He's a very popular person. Crowds of people were always coming around Jesus, just trying to get near him. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of buzz, a lot of people in need, a lot of things going on. As Jesus gets into Jericho, there's a little blind beggar on the corner. He's over there. He begins to shout out, hey, shut up, Bart. Nobody cares about you. Hey, shut up, Bart. You just stay there. Nobody's listening to you. Be quiet, Bart. Jesus is too busy. And it says, as he cries out even louder, in the midst of all the chaos, Jesus stops dead in his tracks. Amidst all the noise, all the chaos, all the busyness of life, it says one man in need. Well, the other people in need, I'm sure, but one man in need, one man crying out to Jesus, and Jesus stops and he hears this man. He hears this man. He hears this man. I said it a minute ago, but I want to say it again. I want you to know that Jesus hears every prayer you have ever uttered in your whole life. He hears every cry that you've ever given out. He's seen every painful situation you've ever walked through, every hurt that's ever been caused to you. He knows every detail of your life, and he cares. And when his desperate people cry out to him, you make the God of the universe stop dead in his tracks and come and get involved in your situation. I want you to know, somebody may have told you that God doesn't care about you, but you are never too insignificant for God. You may feel like you're not of worth or value today, but let me tell you something. You are so valuable and worthy to God that God sent his very own son into this world for you individually. Not just for your neighbor or your friend or your spouse or your mom or your dad or your grandma or the pastor or whatever it might be. He came to this world for you, to die for you. That's how valuable and that's how important you are to the God of the universe. Now, what I love about this moment is suddenly the crowd shifts. Instantly, right? They go from, hey, Bart, shut up. He doesn't care, to all of a sudden Jesus notices him and like, hey, Bart, come on. Let's get up, buddy. Jesus wants you. Hey, come on, I'll carry you to Jesus because you are now my VIP ticket to get to meet Jesus, right? So come on, buddy. People are so fickle, aren't they? People are so fickle. People will turn on a dime on you. That's why our faith isn't in people. Our faith isn't in economy or the government or the news or relationships. Our faith is in our God. Verse 49 and 50 says, cheer up. Come on, buddy. On your feet. Come on. It says, throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and he came to Jesus. Now, I was reading through some commentaries this week and just something jumped out at me that's very important that maybe I had missed before. And one thing I discovered is that this blind guy was a poor guy, he was a beggar. He probably doesn't have very many possessions. Probably the only possession he has is most likely this cloak right here. I mean, this cloak would have been so important to him. It would have shielded him from the sun in the summer. It would have kept him warm in the winter. It would have been his bed at night. It says the moment that Jesus called out to him, he threw aside something that was important to him to go be with Jesus. And so I started thinking this week, what is it that you and I need to throw aside so that we can be in the presence of Jesus? What is it today that's keeping us from being in the presence of Jesus, for seeing Jesus for who he is? What is the cloak that is maybe blinding us today from seeing Jesus for who he really is? You know what it is for some of us? It's pride. It's pride. I can do this by myself. I don't really need Jesus because after all, I'm successful. Look at me. Look at what I've accomplished. Look at my finances. Look at my wealth, right? It's this pride of life. I don't need you. I can do this by myself, right? It blinds us. It blinds us to seeing Jesus for who he really is and what he's really capable of. What else could it be? It could be unforgiveness. It could be resentment. It could be bitterness in our life. I mean, you could go ahead and fill in the blank. What is it for you? What is it the thing that you need to throw aside today so that you can begin to see Jesus for who he really is? If you don't throw it aside today, then listen, then things in life will always keep you blind from seeing Jesus for who he really is. You got to begin to see him today. Verse 51, it says, what do you want me to do for you, Jesus asked. I love this. The blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. I love this. He didn't play games. He didn't just go through the motions. He didn't just talk a talk, right? He had an opportunity to be in the presence of the one who could provide the miracle that he needed. And Jesus says, what do you want from me? He could have danced. He could have played a spiritual game. He could have went through all the motions. He's like, I came here today in need. I am blind, and what I need the most today, Jesus, is I need to see today. I need to see. He brought his need to the one who could meet him at his greatest point of need. I would say for us, we get so caught up sometimes in just going through church motions, going through spiritual activity, right? You show up to a place like this and you go home. Here's what I'll tell you. Don't play games with Jesus today. He's here today. What do you need from him today? What do you need in your life? You got an addiction? How serious are you about coming to the one who can set you free? You got a sin in your life that's been lingering? How serious are you to find freedom from that sin? You got a marriage that is in trouble on the rocks? How serious are you for restoration in your marriage? How serious are you? What's your need today? Let's get honest before Jesus today. What do you need in your life? If you desire a miracle today, then let's get honest with the miracle maker. This is what I've come for. This is the hope that I need today. I believe that you are the one who possesses the hope that I need in my life. I'm desperate for you. And we serve a God today that when you're desperate, he hears our cries. He stops dead in his track. He turns his ear to us. He gets involved in our situation. What do you need from him today? Verse 52 says, go, said Jesus. Your faith has healed you. Immediately he received his sight. Bart believed in faith that Jesus could provide the miracle, and it says immediately. Now, if you've noticed a theme over the last 5 weeks, in every one of these miracles, there's a word every single time that shows up. It's either at once or immediately. Every single time. If you follow, we pointed out every single week. Every time Jesus shows up and gets involved, it says at once or immediately. At once or immediately. Immediately, once again, Jesus gets involved and begins to heal this man immediately. He says, because of your faith, I will immediately get involved in your situation. Jesus provided the miracle that this man needed the most. It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Amazing story of a God today who can provide the miracles that we need. But let me ask you a question. What happens after the miracle? What happens after this moment? Now, I want you to put yourself in Bart's shoes. What do you do if you've been blind your whole life and Jesus gives you sight? What do you do? What do you do? Well, some people fall. Well, what else? You probably go home, visit your friends and family here you haven't seen before, right? You may book a trip to the beach, to the mountains. I got some stuff I need to see. I've seen my whole life. I've been blind my whole life. There's people I've never seen before. There's places I've never been before. There's things I need to do. See, here's what we have this tendency to do. We show up to places like this, and we're in need of a miracle. And then God begins to provide the miracle that we need, and here's what we do. We kind of just get back to life, don't we? We show up, we come to places like this, we're like, hey man, I'm in need of something. God begins to restore something. He begins to heal something, and then we start to drift back. I got some things I need to do, places I need to go. My business needs my attention. We got some places we need to get to we haven't been to, and we start to drift back into our ways. You know, we say, hey, I'll get back to that place. I'll get back to him when I need something. When I need something. But so we learn a very valuable lesson from Bart. Bart does what I hope that I could do, but I don't know if I could in his position. Verse 52, it says, immediately he received sight, and he followed Jesus along the road. 5 lessons from blind Bart is to continue to follow Jesus after the miracle. Continue to follow Jesus even after the miracle. Even after he shows up and provides the miracle, I'm going to continue to follow you. Bart could have got his miracle and went back to life, but Bart chose, I'm going to follow you, Jesus. Why? Because we believe this, is that our life is honored. Miracles are provided through the faith and obedience that we show God. We've talked about this for 2.5 years. God honors our faith and he honors our obedience. What unlocked the heart of God? The faith that Bart had that God could provide the miracle he needed the most. What keeps us in alignment for future miracles to take place in our life? Faith and obedience. God, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to see you for who you are in the good and in the bad. God, I'm going to trust you. Even when it's going well, God, I'm going to trust you. Even when it's going good, God, I'm going to see you for who you is. Because let's be honest, we struggle more seeing God for who he is in the good than I would say in the bad. Because when it's going well, we don't need God as much as we do than when it goes south for us, does it? We don't pray as much when things are going well. We don't desperately need him. We don't cry out to him as much when the bills are paid and the relationship is good and everybody's health is okay. Will we trust God even in the good? Can we see God even in the good moments of our life? Or we only cry out to him in the bad moments of our life? I think there are so many of us, if we could be honest, so many of us that tune in to places like this, and we need a miracle from Jesus. But if we be honest, we don't really want to follow Jesus with the rest of our lives. I want to follow him for whatever it takes to get me through whatever I need, and then I want to get back to doing what I've always done. And we continue this perpetual lifestyle of just showing up when we need something and then going back and drifting, and when's it going to end? God desires to do something in your life. What I love about Bart is that Bart realized that what he needed most in life was not to just be able to see. The miracle he needed most in his life was to be in the presence of Jesus. I mean, this was the greatest miracle of all. Not that he could just allow me to see, because if it was just about sight, then I believe Bart would have fully just left Jesus. Jesus said, go, didn't he? He told him, he said, go, and gives him his sight. And he's like, go? Well, where would I go? Well, where would I go? No, I want to be with you, Jesus. I want to be in your presence. See, that's the miracle. The miracle, so many of us, we're looking for this little tangible thing, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe he is who he is. If he just does this thing, if he just shows up, if he gives me the what. See, the miracle is the presence of Jesus. Not just in your situation right now, but throughout all of your lives and throughout all of your eternity. The miracle is Jesus. Jesus. See, many of us today, we'll say we received the miracle of Jesus. But I wonder how many of us today that have the miracle of Jesus are constantly blind by our circumstances and our situation of who Jesus is and what he's capable of doing in our life. The moment a curveball comes, or the moment of high success, we get back to life and we forget about who Jesus is. See, I think one of the greatest points of the story is that every single one of us has something in common with Bart, where we are all blind, poor beggars in this life, every one of us. So there's a deeper moment in the scripture, every single one of us. You say, wait a second, I'm not physically blind, you're 100% right. But many of us in this room, we're relationally blind, we're circumstantially blind, we're psychologically blind. Right? We have all these issues in our life that are keeping us from ever being able to see God for who he truly is. One thing we all have in common is prior to meeting Jesus, we are all spiritually blind. When we sing a song like Amazing Grace, right, we talk about how God has come to make the blind see, right, to give us that ability. It's not just physical sight, it's spiritual sight. To be able to see a God who is bigger and greater than whatever we're facing in this life. That's what God wants to do. He wants to spiritually give you sight to see your life, to see who you are, to see your condition of sin, and to see your great need for him. And he says, listen, once you discover the sinner that you are, and you cry out to me, desperate for healing and rescue and salvation that I can only bring you, you'll begin to understand that I left heaven and I came to earth to give up my life for you. He says that I will hear your cries, I will stop dead in your tracks, and I will meet you at your greatest point of need. What do we need the most? We need the miracle of salvation in our life. A God who could take our brokenness and our sin and our baggage and restore it and use it for his good. Whatever damage your sin has caused you, whatever damage someone else has caused you in this life, Jesus paid the price to restore you to be the person that he created for you to be. Jesus wants to give you sight today. Some of you here, you say, well, I've received a relationship with Jesus. Then why are you blind to your circumstances right now? He wants to take the lens off. He wants to take the blinders off. Can you see him right now in your difficulty? Can you find him? Because I promise you he's there. Cry out to him. He will hear your cries. He will show up in the moment. He will be all that you need and more. He is the sustaining force of your life. He is the one who makes impossible things possible. He is the God of your life. Cry out to him today. If you're here today and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, then I'm going to be honest with you. If he showed up in your midst right now, you wouldn't recognize him if he showed up. Because you are blind to his presence right now. Only when you come to a place in your life when you become desperate for him. You're desperate for him because you know how great of need you are for him. Once you realize just how far you've gone in life without him, where that road has taken you, once you realize the brokenness and the sin and the damage that life has caused you and that you've caused on yourself, once you begin to realize your need for him and you cry out to him, he will give you sight to see him for who he is. The one who doesn't judge you or condemn you or beat you down, but the one who loves you right where you are, just as you are. the one who wants to heal you and set you free and forgive you and wants you to experience the grace and mercy that he died to give you. Can you see him today for who he is? In the midst of your difficulty or in the midst of your mountaintop right now? Can you see him today? Listen, my prayer for you today is that we would never be people who focus on what we have or what we don't have. We'll be people today who focus on who we have. Let's pray together. God, today, God, we are so thankful that you are God today who cares about every facet of our lives. God, you care about every detail, every hurt, every pain, every cry, every sorrow. God, I don't know what anyone in this room is dealing with, anybody who is at home listening to this message is dealing with. I don't know the pain. I don't know the heartache. I don't know the loss. I don't know the fear, the anxiety. I don't know the financial stress, the marital stress, the relational stress, the child stress. I don't know what people are dealing with today, but I know everybody in this room is dealing with something. Everybody's got some baggage in their life, something they're holding on to. And it's in these difficult moments that we find it difficult to see you for who you are. I pray today that if we know you today, that we could put our sights on you, we could focus on you. We wouldn't focus on what we don't have today or what we do have. We would focus on who we have today. The one today that is greater than whatever we're facing. The one that is capable of doing the impossible in our life. Our faith is in you today. Maybe you're here today and maybe you know that you're blind to the presence of God because you've never entered into a relationship with him. What you know is missing in your life the most today is a personal relationship with Jesus. If that's you today, just cry out to him. He'll hear your cry right now. He'll meet you at your greatest point of need. Just say, today, Jesus, I give my heart and life to you. I realize you left heaven and earth and you came to this place for me, to die for me. You died a real death on a real cross for my sins. You did that to set me free from the penalty and the punishment of sin. You went into a tomb and 3 days later, through the power of God, you conquered death. All so that you could give me victory over sin in this life and you could claim victory for my eternity. God, in you today, I put my faith and trust. In you today, I put my life in your hands. Nobody was looking around. Who would just say, man, that's me today. I'm just entering into a relationship with Jesus today for the very first time. I'm crying out to him. I'm giving my heart to him, my life to him. I want to see him today for who he is. I don't want to leave here today focusing on what I have. I'm leaving here today focused on who I have. Who is it today? That's me today, Tad. That's me today. I see you. Who else? That's me today. God, thank you for showing up in our midst time and time again. Thank you for your mission of rescue. Thank you for changing hearts and lives. Maybe you're here today and you're a follower of Jesus. If you could be honest right now, you are blind to the presence of God in the midst of your circumstance. I don't know what it might be today. I don't know what it might be, but I believe there's something you need to throw down today in order to see God for who he really is. Maybe it's pride right now. Maybe it's baggage of the past. Maybe it's a diagnosis or a loss or a situation that seems too great. My prayer right now is that you could throw it aside and you could see God today for who he is. He's right here with you. He hasn't dropped you off. He hasn't abandoned you. He's willing to walk this journey with you. God, thank you for being with us in every season, in every situation. God, we worship you in this place today. In Christ Jesus' name.